Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of our entitled parents. In today's episode, show my child your tattoo. EM loses it when ED's broken leg isn't as severe as a 3O's 105F fever. If you scream, I'll give in. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Show my child your tattoo. On the 18th birthday, my parents and I all got tattoos, not matching one, and I paid for it myself. I got one of Stitch from Lilo and Stitch playing the ukulele, and it says Ohana under it. It's on my upper back, so a lot of times when I wear dresses and some shirts it shows a bit. It's important to note that after being sexually assaulted when I was younger, I have always had severe anxiety to stranger and new people touching me. So a couple years ago I was at a store with some friends when entitled kid, about 8ish, sees my tattoo sticking out from my tank top. It was summer, but it only showed about half. The EK squeals and goes, "Mommy, look, it's Stitch." We were in a gaming store, so I figured the kid was talking about some merchandise. Then EK says, "I want to see it." And without saying a word to me, entitled mother pulls down the back of my tank top so that her kid can see my tattoo. I lose it. I turn around and smack her hand away as tears are already coming in my eyes. Please do not touch me again. I have to take deep breaths from screaming at this lady. The EM looks like I just kicked an innocent puppy. What is wrong with you? Why would you hit me like that? One of my friends steps forward. She hit you because you touched her without her consent. What made you think you could touch her in the first place? My son wanted to see her Disney tattoo and I just wanted to let him see the rest of it. EM said defensively. You should have just asked. I tell her as I can finally breathe again, I love showing it off. If you had asked, I would have had my friends help with my shirt. You can't just go around touching people like that. EM looks flabbergasted, as if she has never heard of common decency. I don't know why you're getting so worked up, it's not a big deal. At that point I had had enough and didn't feel like being there anymore and started walking away when she yells after me. Aren't you going to let my son see your tattoo? He didn't get a good look. My friend, now pissed, turns and tells her, no. She isn't. Please leave us alone now. We all walked away before she could say or do anything else. I still get upset thinking about that incident to this day. I never got over my stranger anxiety, and honestly, she made it worse. A lot of people really need to learn how to be considerate of others. When I was walking home in the summer in a vest top, two teenage girls behind me were saying my back tattoo wasn't real and threw water on my back to prove it would wash off. Reverse, catch the water and throw it at them. Bad history or not, and no one should ever touch someone without a consent. Let alone pull on their clothing just to see something. Like who in their right mind? I'm covered in tattoos, and this happens all the time. People will grab my arm, move it around to get a look at everything on all sides, whatever. It's absolutely ridiculous. I usually just stare at them dead-eyed until they let go and say, "Are you done touching me now?" Then they feel like shit. EM loses it when ED's broken leg isn't as severe as a 3O's 105F fever. This happened a few years ago. For some background, there were, at this time, 3 other ERs within 10 to 20 minutes of this particular hospital, which was undergoing a remodel. For a few years it was a maze to get to the ER from the parking lot, so most people opted for one of the other ERs instead. We chose this hospital because it was the only one in the area with a pediatric ICU, and when she was an infant, my oldest daughter spent a lot of time in this hospital, in the ER in PICU. The ER staff knew our family pretty well because of this. This particular day, it was my youngest daughter who made a trip to the hospital. She'd woken up that morning with a mild fever and kind of lethargic and spent most of the day laying on the couch sleeping. Fever kept rising. By 3 p.m. it was over 103F. OTC meds weren't bringing it down. I called the pediatrician, who told us if it got higher than 104, to take her to the ER. By 5 or 6, we were packing up to the hospital. Daughter wasn't very responsive and her fever had reached 105F, 40.5 C. We went to the ER we were familiar with, even though it was a few minutes further away. We get to triage and the nurses are obsessive apologetic, but there are no beds available in the ER. My daughter's fever is high, so they lay her across chairs in the waiting room and bring out ice packs to try cooling her down. At some point in the middle of this, EM and ED walk in and sit across from us. EM, poor dear, what's wrong with her? Me, high fever. EM, oh, my daughter has a broken leg. Now, I wasn't completely lost in my concern to realize one thing: ED was sitting cross-legged on the chair. Some broken leg. Me, well, it looks like it's going to be a wait for everyone today. The triage nurse, TN, comes out again and takes my kid's temperature. EM, excuse me. TN, yes ma'am? EM, my daughter needs attention. TN, ma'am, I told you before that our beds are full and we go in order of severity. EM, well, you haven't even come to check on my daughter since we've been here. That girl, pointing to my daughter, doesn't need any more help. My baby is in so much pain. TN, we have policies. If you don't like them, you're welcome to go to another hospital. At this, the nurse leaves. EM is seething. EM, I don't see why your daughter is getting so much attention. I shrug and ignore her. EM, I asked you a question. Me, oh? Sorry. Distracted by my kid's brain literally cooking in her head, you dimwit. Oops. EM, what did you call me? Me, a dimwit. Now shut up. She went red and stood up to loom over me. I smile at her. Me, do you have a problem? EM, I should call security on you. Me, sure. Go ahead. She walked over to the nurses' station complaining loudly. The nurses were having none of it and called security. While waiting, her thinking she's been vindicated, I'm sure, a resident comes out. This guy knew us pretty well, having treated my oldest daughter during several of our previous visits to the hospital. He and I speak briefly and he tells me they're clearing a place for my daughter now. EM overhears. EM, my daughter needs to be seen first. Resident, excuse me? EM, she clearly has a broken leg. Kid is still cross-legged on the chair and hiding her face behind an iPad. Resident, she doesn't appear to be in any pain. This child is running a dangerously high fever. In order of severity, your daughter doesn't rank on the list. Wait your turn or feel free to leave. EM loses it and swings a punch at the resident. Needless to say, security subdued her. I'm not sure what happened next, but the resident did press charges against her. My daughter ended up having a severe summer flu. After a round of saline and an ice bath, her temperature finally began to drop. My mom works at a hospital, so I always hear stories like this about idiots. But to not understand the severity of triage and try to attack a worker. That's just effing upsetting. Someone get the pun police up in here. I remember how high fevers feel as a kid. I got a 104.4 fever when I had strep throat. Hope she's doing well now. Oh, yes, all better now. Once her fever came down, she was back to her normal self by morning. Yeah, my dad's a doctor and has his fair share of idiot stories. Like the time some guy started charging my dad because his kid wasn't being treated for a headache while my dad's patient literally had her nose almost ripped off by a dog. It's good to hear your daughter got better. My brother once ran a fever that high and had to be taken to the ER, so I have an idea as to how worried/concerned you may have been. If you scream, I'll give in. This happened several years ago. I was shopping in a discount store and I start hearing this random screaming. Just screamm for a few seconds, then it would stop. Over and over. It was getting on my nerves, but it doesn't seem to be anyone hurt. I finally come across this woman and about 10-year-old girl. The girl would say, "I want blah blah," the woman would say no, the kid would scream for 3 seconds, without changing facial expressions, and the woman would throw the blah blah in the cart so the kid would shut up. The manager walked up to them and said, "Ma'am, would you please tell your child to stop screaming? It's upsetting other customers." The kid screamed at the manager and grinned. The mom has Insta rage. "How dare you? You've upset my precious darling fragile snowflake. You made her cry." "No tears, the kid is just watching the show, I'll have your job. I'm going to call the police for child abuse." This went on for several minutes, with the manager trying to get a word in edgewise. The manager finally told her to leave the store now. She escorts the two to the front of the store, both of them screaming. The woman is still making threats and the kid is just screaming. The kid picks up a toy and screams, "I want this." The manager told her to put it back, they have to leave. The kid throws the toy on the floor and kicks it. The woman screams, "Look what you made my poor baby do," and grabs the front of the manager's shirt and starts pulling. I don't know what she was trying to do, pull the manager over? The manager is trying to get away from the crazy woman when the cops walk in. They come over, they get crazy lady off the manager. They get on either side of crazy lady and try to pull her off. The kid screams, "Don't hurt my mommy," and kicks one of the cops. So it ended up with crazy lady on the floor with the manager and one cop holding her down. The other cop is holding the kid in his arms as she screams and kicks and bites. Crazy lady is screaming, "Don't you touch my baby. I'll kill you. I'll kill all of you." They call for backup. It takes 6 officers to put crazy lady in the back of the squad car. The kid ended up going to the hospital in restraints because they thought she might be on something. The kid never stopped screaming and fighting. Neither did the mom. I know the store pressed charges for assault and destruction of property, but I don't know the outcome. I just never saw them in that store again. These entitled parents showing their children how the world doesn't work, and they grow up one day and reality hits them. They just don't understand they harmed their kids this way. And that's horrible, getting arrested in front of your kid, stupid lady. That's what I kept thinking, how could you this in front of your kid? That kid is spoiled. The mother is buying her anything she wants rather than disciplining her. That kid is going to suffer when reality hits her with a wet fish. No one, especially teenagers of any kind, are going to tolerate her. She'll get torn to pieces within a month. The way she acts is probably how the kid's going to turn out. I hope crazy lady lost custody of the kid. This was years ago, the kid would be an adult now. I really hope she got a stable adult in her life. Honestly, all these stories seem pretty similar now and super unrealistic. I don't see how this could happen without them being mentally unstable. It seems these stories seem kind made up. And how could OP possibly know whether the store pressed charges, and how he would have known the cops thought the kid was on something? They don't usually announce things like that to all the onlookers of these situations. Also, 6 cops on one lady and a child? Who miraculously show up right when things get out of hand. I'm guessing that for fighting the cops and having her kid kick one, she got special treatment at the station. Maybe even on the way. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.